Yeah, so we didn't have a speaker this week, and I thought we would try this. So this is Bone Chat discussion 43. So we're going to do a random discussion for the first time. Anything you want to talk about, just throw out a topic. What's bothering you? What's interesting? Funding, conferences, friends, and if you want to go deep, we I can certainly turn off the recording anytime you want. We can go dark anytime you want. So let's talk about NAS first. So Alessa threw out the question. It costs $2,000 or $3,000 to speak at NAS, and as a pre-commercial startup, is it worth it?
That's not NAS. That was the other one that you
Oh,
posted.
okay.
That was the other conference. It was 2250, I think. I've gotten to the point of just coming to accept the philosophy that we're going to have to pay to raise money. So it's just the nature of the beast. And so is it worth it for that conference?
What conferences? What funding conference is that?
Let me see. You posted it, I think, last week.
That was
It,
the MedTech strategist, right, Alyssa?
I think that's, thank you. Yes, you have a better brain than I do.
Yeah, the innovation summit at the Grand Hotel.
Thank you.
What are your opinions, Barry?
Barry, what do you think? Have you been to that?
I have. I actually did them way back in my younger days when I was at Synectic Product Development, and you made the rounds of those pretty when it was IN3. That's dating myself pretty badly. But yeah, I find them pretty interesting. And then there's also one here in Philadelphia with Pact, where there's about 45 startup companies presenting at various different levels. So if you haven't gotten involved with that here locally in Philadelphia, that's another really good one, the Philadelphia Alliance for Capital and Technology.
So, Alessa, you missed Ted's talk last week, but it was a TED talk. But anyway, he gave a great presentation on how to get the most out of the conference, and he really talked about funding conferences as much as medical conferences. So, what would you do ahead of time to get the most out of it, Ted?
Yeah, I mean, the theme is essentially the conclusion you came up with, Alyssa, is that you have to commit to being engaged and being there, and ask colleagues and peers and people like this on this call regarding their experiences for these conferences, because some of them can be just a bust, even if you prepare as much as possible. But MedTech Strategist, LSI, LSX that's going on right now in Boston, they've been growing. They've been growing their attendance. They've been active, and my experience with them is, as I prepare and take time to review who's there, match it up with the target list for the client, for my company or the company I'm representing, and just maximize the time. I've always come away with, I believe, an ROI that makes sense, because at least a handful of good contacts, warm leads that I didn't have, or unexpected encounters and leads. And it just takes the hard work, the preparation. And then when you're there, just like when you're going to a trade show, because I talked about trade shows last week as well, it's similar. You're on. I mean, you're on from 6 a.m. till midnight, days in a row. It's tiring, but it's all about the networking and being there and the face-to-face, and the combination of the advanced work, setting up meetings, reaching out to your network, letting people know, and today doing all the social media posting to say, I'm going to be at this conference, I'm going to be at this event, meet me there, or if you're going to be there, DM me directly. And I believe it's worth it. I believe it's worth it. And I would just ask it. I don't know which. Oh, you're asking about MedTech strategists. I've not actually been to one of those, but I've had a client company go to the most recent one in Dublin, and came back and said, yeah, definitely recommend it. It's good, and it's even a different flavor meeting than LSI, because it's a little smaller. and it's a little more likely you're going to just interface and interact with investors and other people in our industry. Not that you don't at LSI, but you got to really work hard, even harder, I think, at LSI to get the investor connections, particularly.
That's what I've heard, particularly for a hardware company, that LSI is not particularly the best because so many technologies are being presented there. Is that would you?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I would just say hardware, and the spine is difficult in general, just because there's a sort of a bad track record of VCs getting burned in spine over the last couple of decades. And so that it's not as in general, just orthopedic implants is not as sexy as all the other things. They're really focused in on diagnostics and AI and wearables and cardiovascular and stroke and things like that are seem to be getting more attention. But that's part of sort of making your story, crystallizing your message, and making it really clear that you're not just another implant. You're not just another plate or a screw with a cool way to manufacture it in your favorite color and put your initials and your college logo on it, personalizing it.
Yeah,
Very, very
on the
true.
smaller local kind of events, I went to Project MedTech in the spring, and Dwayne has them in multiple locations. And there was a spine company. There was a couple of ortho and investors, and it's smaller. So I think along the same lines, I've never been to NAS, but I think it's the investors are much more approachable. And you can network with them.
And I went to one of their first events over in Houston, and Dwayne's those guys are just great guys, in general. And they have the startup in mind at a $250, admittance. But the problem is because they develop, they typically have their company's pitch. And so you're showing up to hopefully figure out who you're meeting with. And so they have a lot of things right for their clients. And so it's good. I think they've done a really nice job.
Interesting. Yeah, as a just someone who's showing up and doesn't have that insight of who is their client and who isn't, that wasn't visible. So
yeah, and they did give me a list beforehand to connect with people. But and again, this was last year or 2 years ago, several of their meetings ago. So I'm sure it's evolved as well. But they did a very nice job, especially for such a quick collaboration.
Another one that is good, and it's focused on musculoskeletal, is an annual meeting in Memphis every fall. It's run by Gary Stevenson, and it's called the MNVC, Musculoskeletal New Ventures Conference. And it's just orthopedics, musculoskeletal. So it's a day and a half of 30 to 36 companies presenting, but also because of the smaller size, and everybody's there. Or, of course, Memphis you've got a lot of strategics already there, like Medtronic and Smith and Nephew, and used to be now Stryker, and then others like HealthPoint Capital. That is who Gary works for now, and Ventures, Service. Folks have been to, I don't know if anyone else here has been to that meeting, but I always, even if I don't have a company that is fundraising or in the space, I've gone just to go to the meeting, and just because I spent 14 years of my life in Memphis and have a lot of friends there and family. But it's a good meeting. I highly recommend it. It's only $400, $450.
That's so smart. That's so smart to do it that way.
Memphis meeting is good. It's small and intimate, and it's all about orthopedics, which is nice.
Yeah, that is really nice because, to be honest with you, I look at it, if I were an investor, now granted, I'm clouded with my own judgment here, but if I were an investor and I really focused on Warren Buffett, his philosophy is getting in while everybody's getting out. Everybody's been out of spine for a long time. They've been in extremities. And now that's dwindling away. So I can see I've actually had meetings with funds that reached out to me as this tiny little company looking to have some kind of information about us. So I think there might be a trend that's coming up with that mindset.
Yeah, I'm getting the sense that it's definitely getting better, and it'd be interesting to hear from my contacts that are LSX this week, yesterday and today, and LSI next week in Europe. Now that one's going to be much more European focused, just because of the location. It's in Portugal. The U.S. one is every March in Southern California, in Dana Point. More U.S. focused, but global, really in nature. To see, but the discussion points that I'm hearing is that it's warming up. Deals are warming up because capital's been sitting on the sideline. These funds, they have to deploy that capital. They've got to do something with it. They've only got a timeline, a fuse on that capital, and they've been sitting on it for a couple of years, and now they've got to put it to work.
Darn.
And Barry, were you saying something?
You're on mute.
Yeah, typically that you've got like a 7-year window to deploy and get a return on that capital.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you. Ted, would you mind introducing me to Gary? I
Absolutely.
think Mike Sherman tried to introduce me, but I don't know what happened there. So
Yep. No, I know he still has 6 slots left. I'm trying to get 2 of them, so I'm competing against myself now.
Okay. Well,
no problem.
Yeah. Thank you, Ted.
No, because he's looking for 510K. My 2 projects are class 3, and he's also trying not to. He tries to balance out the program so it's not all spine or it's not all sports medicine or all extremities. So he does a good job at that.
That's awesome.
But happy to do it. He's got a big program tomorrow at the OSET, the Ortho Summit, in Vegas, where he's doing this Health Point Capital Day, and they've got a nice lineup of companies presenting tomorrow, including Aldo Denti from J&J and Ivan Torinos from Zimmer, kind of doing a cage fight or some kind of debate. I don't know. They're going to put on their karate clothes and fight each other. We'll see. That would be interesting.
So on the, for those of us who are not startups, more on the service provider side, are any of these better than others? Because I have been so tempted to go to NAS. Like, so many of my sort of like end clients are there. But I don't know if there would be anyone that would actually be in the position to talk to service providers.
Yeah, NAS, Andrea, that's, from a service provider standpoint, I think everybody is, at least in the spine world, is going to be there, decision makers. I mean, a lot of companies are, and we talked about this in my talk last week, adjusting their budget and their spend and not spending it on a booth anymore. There's even some pretty decent sized companies that aren't having a booth at NAS, but they're there. They're having a hotel suite nearby, or I just got an email this morning from a CEO saying, "Yep, we're going to be there, but we're going to be in a suite at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Chicago. Pick a time. Let's get together on Wednesday." And just because the booth costs so much, even though a suite at the Ritz-Carlton is not inexpensive either, but they're all there. So it comes back to Andrea, just getting that target list together and say, who do I really want to do business with, or who's a good fit for me, and look at your LinkedIn connections and just start reaching out and post something on LinkedIn saying I'm going to NAS, and
yeah, I mean,
the name of your firm, but
that's why it's tempting, because a lot of my LinkedIn connections are going, right, and they are posting, but yeah, I don't know if they would wanna, if that's the best time for them. Like, are they there to meet with surgeons and other kind of providers versus someone like me?
That's the priority from a company standpoint, for sure. And so, push comes to shove and they've got an exciting new product launch and they're busy, they're going to focus on the surgeon. But there's time during that meeting, to connect with others in the business. And you just come by, and what I would say is don't just go spend the money to go and just hope that you're going to get a meeting. Try and set some definite, times or time frames to to connect with people, to say, okay, let's meet on Wednesday. Let's have a cup of coffee at 10:30 or whatever. Let me know what works for you, and let's get it on the schedule.
Mhm.
Andrea, I'm on a committee for one of the big meetings, and they have started an innovation nexus. And they're going to have a meeting next year. I don't know how public this is, but I think it's public enough because it's on the schedule at NAS. So um, one of the things that I'm going to bring up in that committee meeting is IP development, because this is all about innovation, and IP is a major focus of that. I mean, that's a starting point to do a search.
Right.
And so I think that I think one thing that these conferences could do a better job at, and I would be interested in other people's perspectives on not only this, but also evolution of these conferences, is uh, segregating companies, partnering them together that are consulting companies, not just so if there's an additive manufacturing group, they're all together. So you're directly going not all over the map, where you're going. IP, eventually having IP booths there to speak with consultants. I think that's maybe the next step in bringing in some additional revenues into these and actually solving problems for people that are attending. Because when I was shopping for an additive manufacturer, we went all over the world for testing our products. And so it would be nice to be able to just go to one direction and say, without knowing the company's name, knowing that that area is all additive or all IP. What do you guys think about that?
If you can get them to agree to that. I mean, like the textbook companies are usually all in the same area, and it's interesting. You go to a neurosurgery conference versus an orthopedic surgery conference. The neuro guys are more the nerds, from medical school. So they line up they actually line up in front of a book, to buy a new textbook, where the orthopedic guys are usually at the booth that has the putting competition.
The knuckle draggers.
I would love Dr. Glaucomflecken to do a skit on that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's great.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, it would be nice to have like a Q&A, and then bring all the additive manufacturing people there at the conference, and they can answer questions from the audience. The same thing with IP, and that way sort of kind of get to know people and see how knowledgeable they are. A lot of the IP conferences I go to, they have different tracks. I don't know if that is something that is done at these more ortho conferences, but yeah, there would be like additive manufacturing track, IP track, 510K track, and then people who are actually interested in that go and listen to those presentations. So not everyone needs to be there at the same time.
The other thing to consider is host an event. It doesn't have to have a booth even. You just basically organize it and say, we're going to meet and get a spot where you can meet, and folk, there's going to be an IP, meet and greet session and discuss, current trends of med tech intellectual property. And we're going to be at the Marriott Marquis lobby bar. Meet us there on Wednesday at 7, and Andrea's going to talk about it, and do things like that, as opposed to just kind of having a couple of days there, just working hard, trying to drop cards off at different booths.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting idea. Yeah.
David K has raised his hand. I think he's on audio.
Yeah, hopefully I am.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I must be having some internet issues. So the OMTech meeting might be more inclined to do that sort of thing. The thing about the clinical meetings is the vast majority are just going to look at the new toys, not just putting contests, but it's the new toys. Let me go play with the new toys. I want to see the hot newness. How much innovation they really do, not really so much. Again, there's, that'd be a whole nother topic. But, the OMTech meeting is more inclined to have the manufacturers there. And it does have a small number of clinicians that do go, sometimes by invite. I've actually spoken at that meeting. But that's where I think you might find more interest in the whole IP issue, and understanding IP and IP tracking. It's this black box that either somebody's incredibly interested in or incredibly uninterested in. And there's nobody in between.
Yeah. How do you spell the meeting name?
OMTech, OMTEC.
OMTEC Chicago every year in summertime.
You know what would be interesting is to have a BoneChat booth for the surgeons that actually do want to invent product.
We'll get there.
The bone factory. The bone
factory.
Yeah, the bone. Yeah.
I mean, we could pitch in, right? Like we could all potentially pitch in.
If we've got 52 members right now. I think when we hit 100, I'm kind of making a promise that we'll have an in-person presence at some of these conferences, because it is a powerful group. We've got collectively hundreds of years of startup experience.
Yeah.
One of the things I think you could, certainly like a double AOS where you covers all different market segments, and at least, probably there's the higher propensity of a quorum from this community that would be there, and you could even not if not have the expense of a booth, have some type of event or meeting place and say, we're gonna have a BoneChat reunion, or not a reunion, but a reception, and we're gonna hand out new hats, make orthopedics great again.
I love that. I love that idea. I would be right there if we would do something like that.
We may do it.
There's a couple of other places that I would like to bring up. One is called JOEI, Journal of Orthopedic Experience and Innovation. It's an online journal, highly recommend it. It's a lot of practical. It's guys who tend to write in the academic journals, but also are practical. It's that small segment. I'm actually an editor on that journal, and they welcome, let's say, and it's about orthopedic experience and innovation. How do you do it? So you're going to actually be going to your target group. The other one is a group called Ortho Founders, and there was actually a presentation, I missed it. It was a couple nights ago, by somebody who came up with a device and is looking for funding. And again, it's going in the right audience. And that was meeting with regularity, and probably went a year and a half without much. And looks like there's a little bit starting back up again. So those are two groups that I think would be more inclined, and you would have a better audience. The trouble with double AOS is you could get stuck underneath the staircase and nobody knows you're there, unless they happen to stumble across you. I mean, it's so easy to get swallowed up in double AOS. Plus the expense is, it's insane.
It's too much noise. It's hard to stand out among the noise. And at NAS and Academy, it's mostly just sales reps sitting in booths with suits on. And Andrea needs to talk to the R&D teams, and the R&D teams they're not in the booth, even if they're there.
One of the things I was going to quickly suggest, Andrea, and I know it's not specifically all related to orthopedics, but is part of some of the marketing that I do. I work with 3 different mentor groups, and they're mentoring groups through EIT Health, the innovation space, which is a DuPont, Delaware collaboration in University of Delaware, and then World Upstart. And all of them are incubating startup and early stage companies in various forms and fashions. Some of them are paid early mentorship. Some of them are, you're giving your time and energy, but it's a great way to meet a whole lot of folks in the service provider space, as well as then these companies that are innovating new products and technologies. Again, not specifically all within the orthopedic space, but that's another great way to kind of make connections. And through EIT Health, I had a client reach out to me earlier this week about, becoming kind of a permanent, advisor to the organization. So it does work. It certainly is out there. So.
Yeah, I always thought incubators would be a great place for those reasons, startups and don't know much about IP and would benefit so much from someone like me.
Right. I mean, I think you mentioned Project MedTech. That's another incubator, and certainly the MedTech, Project MedTech and the MedTech Innovator are, two other ones that, but they typically have people that join and are part of them are contributors to them.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Andre, I was going to add, I think the MNVC conference, which Alyssa mentioned earlier, and LSI might also be good options, just because most of those are early stage companies, and so they're kind of at that point where they need the service.
All right, thank you.
Asher, are you going to MNVC?
Yeah, we're presenting. We're hoping to get FDA clearance on one product, the Fusion product, and then I'm hoping we get FDA clearance on the motion preservation product beforehand. But if we don't, we may back out. So there may be a new open slot.
Well, I'll be there regardless. So if you're there, it'd be good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm sure I'll see you next week in Chicago.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
I'm going.
Yeah, I had a quick question. Just going back to David, the name of that journal, because I'm looking for one that sounds like what you're describing.
Yeah, Journal of Orthopedic Experience and Innovation.
Dr. Kirschenbaum started that. Is a better journal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sean, you should come to Memphis you should come present your ACL tensioner in Memphis. That would be perfect.
I've actually got an invite, Tiger, and I'm trying to juggle a couple of things to make sure I can get across for it. So we've got labs that we've got to run at the same time. So that's a bit of the juggle that I'm trying to manage at the moment. So, but it is part of the plan.
Excellent. You're in the right time. Your pre-commercial US is the perfect time to go to Memphis.
Yeah, good.
And I can show you all the right barbecue places, Sean, to go to.
That sounds excellent.
Just walk across the street to Gus's.
That's right, Gus's Fried Chicken. Yeah.
You can visit Elvis while you're there too.
Yeah, sure. He's walking around still.
I heard he's still alive.
Yeah.
There's rumors. All right, that was a good topic. What else do you guys want to talk about? What's bothering anybody?
I've got a question just for I'm trying to finish a contract proposal. This is actually one that I'm working on with another colleague here on the BoneChat community. Indemnification language as a consultant. If you're doing, for example, due diligence for an private equity or investment firm, and what's your experience? Like Barry. I mean, if you have any standard language, to use. I mean, there's kind of pretty standard. You just, concern is you don't want to get into what you're providing advice, and particularly to investors that then, the investment goes bad, which is going to be 80% of the time in startups anyway, but you want to be protected. What's your experience with that?
So in all of my contracts, I have kind of standard indemnification that, the client bears the risk associated with my work, unless there's some type of gross negligence on my part. So,
I think I've got what I need, but I'm just.
Yeah, we can talk offline if you'd like. I'm happy to share what I kind of dropped into my contracts.
Yeah, I'd like to compare it. That'd be good. If I can help it, I don't have to call up Andrea's law partner and get the hourly rate to get it done.
I mean,
Well,
that I think that's worth the investment. And
Yeah,
I think
sure.
a lot of times something like that someone else already has, it's probably has been vetted along.
Yeah.
But yeah, if that should be a small, less than an hour for someone to draft for you.
Yeah, certainly on that project you and I were talking back and forth, that was certainly one of the things that went through my mind in terms
Yeah.
of a liability.
Yeah, that's the same project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And Joe, I'm going to put you on the spot. So Joe's got a startup called NovaSource. They have a total knee and maybe a total hip. Do you guys go to the current concepts meetings? Where do you go for total joints?
Yeah, no problem putting me on the spot, and I can't take ownership. I'm just the general manager here at NovaSource. Doug Hawkins is the CEO and owner. But yeah, we have a total knee and a total hip. We are kind of we have kind of laid low in the past couple of years. We go to OnTech for contract manufacturing. It is a great, you guys mentioned it earlier. We've always had great success there. It's a good way for us to talk to the people who are making a lot of the parts for us and also network a bit, get a couple more contract manufacturers, and we see a lot of innovative technologies there. But beyond that, we go to AAOS. We haven't gotten a booth there yet. But as we've talked with Tiger, or Doug has talked with Tiger with some of the things that we have in the pipeline, we're hoping to start going to AUKUS, start going to AAOS, getting booths at both of those places, and getting our product a little bit more in front of surgeons and in front of you guys as well. So in terms of conferences, there hasn't been too many that we've targeted, but I think that'll change 2025.
Yes, total joints is a tough market as well as spine. It's just so hard to get noticed. There's so many products.
I think that you've talked a lot about on the single use stuff, and that's something that we're interested in developing for sure. And I think that's what we want. That's what we want to grab people's attention with. But we'll see. That you'll only find out whenever you put it out there and take that leap.
Yeah, explain the single use, Joe, to everybody, because when total joints, you don't think of single use.
Yeah, so it's I can't take credit for the idea either, but it is our owner's baby, a total single use disposable knee instrument kit. So not only it covers everything that you need for a total knee replacement, but it is also assembled it's pre-assembled and organized in a manner inside of each of the sterile kits. That way it's chronological, kind of. It goes in order from one step to the next. You're going to start with your IM finding the canal. You're going to go into the distal cut and so on. All the parts are ordered start to finish. That way it's very easy for a surgical tech who might not be as familiar with a system to just go, all right, this is clearly number one because it's in top left corner, read across our instrument kit, pull the next instrument out, and then hand it to the surgeon. They take it away. It is targeted toward ASCs. It's like I said, it's supposed to be small and easy to move around with the sales reps transporting it and whatnot. So that's kind of the focus of it. But that's where we're putting a lot of our emphasis right now. And we're happy with a lot of the prototyping. It's just a matter of getting all the validations done and the product cleared. And
do you have IP around that?
Yes. Yeah. So I was listening to Andrea talk on that front, and I know that we've already addressed it, and we've got some patents pending on the front for the flow of going in a sequential pre-assembled kit. Amongst a couple other things, some tibial trialing, I believe, is another patent that we've got pending on it.
Hey, Joe, are you aware of the work? Sorry, Tiger. Joe, are you aware of the work that
they did at DePuy with the Attune knee system and their single-use kits?
I wouldn't say aware of the work. I'm aware of the system.
Okay. So really, they put a big effort into it about 10 years ago, give or take. And it was related to the first Attune primary launch, which there's been a million launches over 15 years with that product line. I don't know a ton of details. Two things I do know is they moved completely away from doing the single-use kits. And I don't know the exact reason why, but I think it was mostly cost ineffective. And I believe the driver for that was that they completely over-engineered all the instruments. Everything was just extraordinarily fancy, and every button had a different color, and it all clicked and clacked, and it was just way too overthought. And if you're going to do single-use stuff, that is the opposite of what you got to be thinking of. You got to think about simple, easy, cheap, because you're going to throw it all away.
We've seen, and thank you, Kyle. I appreciate the honest feedback there. And yeah, that's what we've seen. The Attune is one of the ones that we looked at for our predicate. And yeah, you look at it and there's about 50 different pinholes for your distal cut. And you're like, how do you need that many? Just 2, and then maybe +2, -2, if that. So yeah, and that's the thing is, we definitely want it to be simple. I know I didn't talk too much about our current products on the market. We've got our knee and our hip. Both of those are very efficient systems. Our CR knee system is only 2 instrument sets. We try to keep it very lightweight, and we're not trying to hit every single anatomical need for a surgeon, but 90% of the patient population is plenty for us. So it's a generic knee system, and we're trying to follow suit with this single use, make it as simple as possible. We don't want there to be any sort of ambiguity. A surgeon should be able to pick it up and be able to know exactly what they're looking at and exactly how to use it. So we've taken a good bit of feedback from different opinion leaders on that front. But yeah, we have looked at the Attune, and as well as the Medact GMK Efficiency, I believe is another single-use system out on the market right now.
So I'll go back to the Journal of Orthopedic Experience and Innovation. There's a few articles written by a person named Charlie DeCook, who's down in Atlanta. Do you know who I'm talking about? Does anybody know?
Charlie does a ton with DePuy hips, with Velis and with the Concise Automated Impactor. Yeah, Charlie's a big guy in the DePuy realm.
What was the last name?
DeCook. DECO. Okay. So the reason I'm mentioning them is in their surgery center, they'll do 12 to 14 joints from 6:30 in the morning to 10:30 or 11 in the morning.
They are moving.
So if you want to talk the master of, it's 2 rooms. If you want to talk the master of efficiency, and it's a group of 10, and they're all pretty much hitting the same targets. Absolute masters in efficiency. They measure every single element of the procedure, from draping to positioning to dressings. Everything is measured in time, so they know exactly how long everything takes, and there is no room for anything. I mean, they're just incredibly efficient.
They're robots. That's something that I've always kind of had a knack for. I even commented on one of Tiger's articles about data collection, and I think that surgery center that you talk about, they might be doing it quite well. And it's something that I think is going to be more and more important. And I think that systems like we're working on right now, you can start using that data to really leverage your point and leverage your product into those centers.
They don't use robots. No robots.
Robots slow you down.
Yeah,
robots they add steps, they add labor, they add registrations.
Yeah.
Amount of expense.
Hey, Tiger, I went and visited. I went down to watch him operate, and I'm a spine guy. I don't know anything about knees or hips other than I got 2 of them. And I went down to watch how they ran their operation. And he made his first incision when I got there at, I think it was 6:30. I shook his hand, thanking him after watching 16 total joints. At 12:52 in the parking lot, he was playing pickleball, and and he was seeing, and there were 80-year-olds in there, and there were 50-year-olds in there. He was not. I went down to watch it. It's the single best operating room organization I've ever seen. I'll never see one better. And you'll also never see, I don't think you'll see an operation that's more efficient. Maybe like the Navy Seabees building a bridge somewhere is better, maybe. But it's and Joey he has published 2 big articles in Joey about 12 by 12 and their efficiency, and it's spectacular. And I would tell people this, and I would have my hip or knee done there by him in a nanosecond. I mean, because all the delay, all the wait, all the waste is eliminated, and the outcomes are excellent, and their HCAP scores are great, and their Google 5-star rating is a 5-star rating. Like, they are truly innovative. And if you want to go see what the future, I don't think the future will ever quite look like that, because what they have is, it's repeatable, but it's not, you can't equal it, but you can do what they do. But they're the future of this. And you'll learn a lot just by watching what is possible. So I would urge you to reach out to Dr. DeCook's group and see if you can just go observe. I told him I wasn't selling anything. I just wanted to see it, and I'm so glad I did.
Wow. Maybe we could get him on BoneChat to explain. So David, how does I mean, you own a hospital and you're a surgeon. How do you convert a hour-long total knee into 30 minutes? I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah, well, that's a hot topic conversation, because we're not able to do that because a lot of people just don't want to move. I mean, we deal with the same issues that any place else deals with. In some ways, it's actually worse because I'm paying for the inefficiencies of others. And if I squawk about it, and last night there was a meeting, people were squawking about why are we paying for this? So I can't give you a great answer. I really think it takes a group of people who go, look, let's be as efficient as we can be, not cut corners, and just be efficient. And you can still provide phenomenal outcomes, just really what you're hearing. I haven't seen any of it firsthand, but I mean, what I keep reading, and when you read the articles that he's written, again, I'm going to keep referring all you back to Joey, because you don't need a subscription. It's all online. You're going to see some amazing things discussed in there. You're going to see things that are not mainstream, should be mainstream, but they're not mainstream. And it's about people who are doing things to provide far superior outcomes, but in novel ways. Do they have the wherewithal to say, hey, we can bottle this and we can capture it and subsequently, commercialize it? No, a lot of them don't understand the steps necessary to do that. And because it's so different from what, again, is mainstream, what people are used to. And again, the pushback is, well, they've got to be cutting corners. The results aren't that good. And actually, the results are good. And you don't really want to push away a very effective, efficient surgeon. It's not just the surgeon, it's the entire team. It's the entire center is set up for efficiency. How many steps do you take? How far are people away, and how far do they have to go? None of the spinals are done in the ORs there. They're all done in the pre-op areas. Everything is just really honed down to say, what do you need to do and what don't you need to do? And it kind of fits in a little bit like, Ted, Tiger, our conversation yesterday. It's how do you have an implant design that does things once and you don't have all this fiddling around? And a lot of it goes back to what is the original intent. And, where they probably can stand some help might be in, again, that instrumentation, the turnover side of things, because you still have the turnover, you still got to clean the rooms up. And they're only using 2 rooms when they do it. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah. Like I said, it's worthwhile to read and about what they're doing, because I would completely agree. It is the model that you want to look for. It's not cutting corners. It's just doing what's needed.
And are they a hospital or an ASC? I mean, can they do things? Yeah, they can't. They can do things a hospital can't do.
Well, I think
Streamlining.
there's also something that it sounds like they specialize in one thing and they do it well and they do it better than anybody else. Is that correct? Or are
Yeah,
they
they're just doing hips and knees.
okay? So yeah, if you and I've had several surgeons like this, if you have people that really focus on what they do very well and the team is fluid, their reps are fluid, everybody anticipates, and it's the same team over and over and over. That's how you achieve that. And it is achievable as long as you have a physician leading the room, but that respects the entire team and it allows it to flow. And nobody starts until you're all together. And it is the best thing. It's the greatest team. You get excited to go in those rooms. I think that's awesome that they have that. And agree with Joey being a great juror.
Yeah, the best. I've been to surgery in lots of countries. The most impressive place was Germany because it's so freaking organized. I mean, everything is exactly where it should be on time, no wasted motion, and that's the Germans are great at operational efficiency.
So Tiger, there was a German surgeon visiting with the cook, and this was posted up on LinkedIn, I think last week. And he said, "I thought we were efficient. My God, we're not even close."
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get the cook on BoneChat, or I would love to have him explain how they do that. But
I'll ping him, Tiger. I don't know if he'll do it, but I will ask him because it's spectacular. And I was describing, and I think the others that have talked about it, everybody here who has been in an operating room will understand this description. So I sat there and watched 16 cases, and no one did the following: rushed. Like nobody rushed. And also nobody said, "Where's that thing? Like, where do we keep that?" None of it. Like, and to cook, actually, I urge you to just look him up on YouTube. He's got a bunch of like 15-minute, 20-minute long lectures that are, I mean, really engaging, really fascinating. He's a great speaker. And like he how he started doing this to get everybody on board, and I think this is brilliant. He started timing himself. He timed everything he does. He said, "I can't tell my anesthesia people that they can do the block." He won't let, like he says, operating rooms are operating rooms. They're not, that's not why we don't do anesthesia in operating rooms. Like you hear him say these things and you're like, what? But because his data is so solid and he has such a large N, and he says, like, when I'm at this point in case number 3, case number 5 you can start getting them back because you can predict it because you know how long I take. And every single component of the procedure is timed. So if his exposure should be within a certain amount of time, if it's not, he's looking at himself. Am I doing something wrong? Can I get faster? It's a fascinating, and then he said, we don't pay anybody more than they pay others. And he said, but everybody starts, when you start to time yourself, everybody starts to try to do better. And they figure out ways to get rid of waste. And you look up and you're doing 16. And I think his new goal, is 20. But like I'm telling you, no one breaks a sweat. It's that well run. So I'm gonna ping him and say,
does he open and close?
No. That's like, it's after the third case I finally said to him, because I didn't really know him. I'm like, "Dr. DeCook, who's the guy who keeps coming in at like 14 minutes? He's like, "Oh, that's my first assist. They come in and close." But like the person walks in like this, walks in, and the gown's not sitting there waiting for him. It's being handed to him. Like, it's like a Broadway show, actually, is what it's like. Like, everybody hits their marks. And you almost have to believe it to see it. But I will ping him and say, "Hey, is there any chance you would come on and talk to a group of like this bone enthusiast, would you talk about this? And I don't know if he will, but I'll certainly, worst he'll do is tell me no. So
So a couple of things I'll add into. There are contingencies. Let's say something happens, because things do happen. For example, Lester choke gets broken. He goes, I think in the one article, it takes me a minute and a half to put a cable around it. He knows exactly how long it takes for each of the different elements that don't work right. And if, let's say, a patient doesn't show up, they have the blocks done such that they can always move somebody else in and never skip a beat. And I think that, the point is, efficiency is not about rushing. It's just about doing things once. That's it. And you're always moving forward. Everything is moving forward. And a lot of that, again, if you want to bring it back to what everybody on the call is about, it's about design and intent through design and setting everything up to say, we don't need a tray that has 50 instruments in it. We need 4 instruments, because that's all that gets used. We don't have to keep worrying about all these contingencies and getting things confused, overloading central processing, overloading the cleanup, overloading this, getting people confused. It starts really with the intention of the design. Again, getting back to our conversation yesterday, Tiger, what did we talk about? It's one type of implant, one type of device. You don't need all this stuff. Get to what you need.
Yeah, I love that. It's definitely the future. I'm more interested in how Mark talked himself into a case. How do you do that, Mark?
I'm incredibly persuasive. No, I was following and read a couple of his things, was following him on LinkedIn. Maybe it was last year, over a year ago. And I just pinged him and said, hey, I think what you're doing is tremendous, because I got so frustrated watching ORs and watched the hit. I watched how industrial engineers set things up. And I'm thinking, this is what we need. And he's basically an industrial engineer. So I just pinged him and said, hey, I love what you're doing. I would love to come watch you do it sometime. And he's like, come on down. I'm like, okay. And I said, just so you know, I'm not selling you anything. I don't know valgus from varus. I don't know it. And I actually said, I actually don't care how you do if you do it from the anterior hip I could not care less. And if you start talking about it, I'll probably fall asleep. But I want to see how you run this place. I went down, watched it. It couldn't have been nicer. It's fascinating. Yeah. So sometimes you just ask people to do stuff if they're nice and they do it.
That's a good lesson for everybody. Just ask. Interesting. Oh, we're coming up on the end. What's anything else? Any trends? It feels like funding is starting to loosen up a little bit. Looks like interest rates are going to go down, and like we talked about, that 7-year cycle with the capital allocators, they've got to do something. It's like a balloon that just keeps getting bigger, and they've got to do something with the money. Once the election's over with, whoever, it doesn't matter who wins, there'll be more certainty in politics. I think after the election, I think we're going to see a lot more funding loosen up. That's what it feels like.
I don't know. So here's some pushback on that. So
please.
So if you look at it from a historical perspective, it takes about 10 years for any country to kind of get through that. There's 2 times as many companies out there pitching products as there were before to investors. And as we're seeing, many are holding on to their money for a variety of reasons. And so I'm actually of the perspective where I'm thinking through this is when I raise this capital, so we want to raise 8 million, right? Do I do it in 2 tranches, knowing that a lot of times an investor will be excited and they'll say, I'm going to give you X dollars amount, and then that money doesn't show up because they got excited about something else. It doesn't bother me. Everybody has ADD right now. But knowing that it's not reliable, to anticipate the money from the sources that claim that they're coming from? Do you raise the full amount, put it into a money market savings account, and bear the interest, and now you have an employee paid for, or just off the interest, or do you do tranches?
I would take, if the terms are good, unless I would take it all if you can,
Yeah.
because the future is uncertain. But like you said, this is like 2008, where companies that can't raise money just die on the vine, and then eventually the strong companies survive and get all of the capital.
Yeah, and that makes complete and perfect sense. And then plus the economy is going towards a K curve direction from an economist standpoint, where the rich get ultra rich and the middle class get dampened. There's a further divide between the middle and the class and the rich. And so and that's historically relevant many times over. And we're starting to see that now with even just gas prices and commodity products like groceries. So I think that if history repeats itself, that might be advice well taken.
Yeah, this is, if it was 4 or 5 years ago, you could do tranches, but I think now you just need to take everything you get. And you can put it in like you said, a money market. You can get a nice return on the funds you're not using.
Ted,
Well,
what do you
anyway,
think about that? I'm interested in Ted's position on that.
Yeah, I think Ted has dropped.
Oh man, okay. Well,
Oh,
David would be a
wait
good
minute.
one too.
Asher's got a comment here. Asher's back. Asher's having
Sorry,
internet problems.
Sorry about
Perfect.
that. Yeah, I mean, we raised just under 10 million, which is way more than we need to get FDA clearance and even do our alpha launch. But we did that on purpose because it's number one. I mean, we were able to, and it was one of those things where we'd rather have the money and not need it than run into a scenario where we need it and suddenly have to go raise it and change the entire company trajectory. But also, like we raise money through convertible notes, and we'll probably make 5% on it, 5.5, whatever it is. And so it's one of those things where we've got all that additional funds that we wouldn't have otherwise had, just kind of sitting there waiting for when we actually need it. And because it's all through convertible notes and they convert at a certain point in time, like we won't have to pay that interest rate. So it's sort of a win-win if you're able to structure it that way. But depending on the terms, it may or may not be worth it.
Yeah, we were seeing one of the chapters that we invested, they wanted 50% discount rate and 30% warrants. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. Thanks for
They're
that.
not serious investors. Yeah. Good comment, Asher. Thanks. Well, we're going over the hour. This has been fun. You guys like this versus a speaker? Just kind of anything goes? I don't know.
I do.
Yeah. All right. Okay, good. Yeah, maybe we'll do this once a month or something. Just have an open mic. Because we get to talk about topics we normally don't talk about. And we'll try to get Dr. DeCook on. That sounds great. All right. Thanks, guys. That'll be a wrap. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.